Welcome to Jack's Crypto.
Hello everybody and welcome to Jack's Crypto. I know it's been a little while. That's kind of by design. We really didn't have a lot to talk about the last few months. The price has continued to go on its path that it should be on. The last video that I made, there was a lot of discussion on where we're going to be at the end of this year of 2025 and when should we sell. And there's been a lot of accumulation, a lot of price action in the last few months, and it's time now for us to discuss where we are and what's our plan to exit this cycle, if it does have an exit, because there's a lot of discussion about that right now. A lot of people think that there isn't going to be an exit, that there will not be a top, that it's just going to continue. Right now, everything that I see, all the indicators show that we are going to continue with the cycles, and unless we go past December or so without any indication that the cycle is over, I'm going to keep on that path. So where are we at today and what's been going on? Well, we can see October has already been pretty good. The last 7 days we're up over 10%. The last month we were up 11%. But September has traditionally been a really bad month for Bitcoin. But we knew this because we have looked at our charts, we have looked at historical, and we already knew that that's what was going to happen. So October was, a good time for it to start on its upward trend to get to the end of this bull cycle. September was a great time to buy when it was dipping down. Now, we also know that Bitcoin has been over $100,000 for a long, long time. So let's see, it's been there since, it's been over 100K, and it hasn't dropped less than 100K in many, many months. So there's no indication that's going to go lower than that until the next bear cycle, which should be in 2026. But as we continue to look at where we think it's going to be at the end of the cycle and where we want to sell, it really goes back to the things that I was talking about before in my last videos. And people put together graphs like this, and it's nice to look at, but I don't believe that this is very accurate. So if you're seeing things like this, then just know that this is not an exact mirror. And as you can see, the price they have it into the 300Ks. I don't believe, that's going to be where we're going to get to. And that if you've seen my videos before, that my price prediction is going to be around the 140, 150 range. And we'll dive into that a little bit at the end to show why I think that, and where are you going to get the indicator to sell if you plan to sell. This is a great indicator of the way that cycles work, whether it's the stock market, whether it's crypto, whether really anything that you're looking at. This is the different stages that you go through with the market. And Bitcoin follows the same type of stages. So, we're doing a lot of accumulation, you can see through August and September, right? But then traditionally in October, which a lot of people call Uptober, there's a big rally into November, and then potentially December this year, because we are a little bit late on where we should be based on previous cycles. And then come the end of December, into December, there's going to be you're going to start it's going to start dropping, and you're going to go into your what you call blow off and then collapse, right? So we're going to take a look at that a little bit, but I just want to show this is a really great way to show it. So it's a lot of information. This is each cycle: 2012 cycle, 2016, 2020, 2024, which is the one we're in now, right? And so I'm going to briefly go over these numbers, and then I'll show you on a graph, like I said, which makes a little more sense. So there's a few key dates to look at that are kind of important when you're looking at each cycle. One is the halving date, and then the election day, the U.S. presidential election day. 150 days after the halving. That's normally you can see where you are. It's normally a good checkup. Your cycle top date, your cycle top price, and then how many days did it take to go from the halving to the top, all right? Then you see like your halving to the top increase, and then from there you go into your next cycle, which is your bear cycle or crypto winter, right? What that date was, what was the lowest point, and then the lowest point price, and what the top to the low, how many days that was. Now, the 2012 cycle was a little bit different because the election day was actually before the halving. That hasn't been the case the next three cycles. That was earlier Bitcoin, and so that one was a little bit off. But the dates are pretty good to look at. As you can see, the halving to the top, it was a short. It was 220 days. And then the top to low was 429 days. When we go to the 2016 cycle, we see that the halving to top was 523 days, and then the top to low was 366 days. 2020 cycle, we're looking at the halving to top 546 days. See, it's pretty close with the 2016. And then the top to low is 379 days, which is also very close to 2016. And then where we are today, you know, our halving, our 150 days price, the election day price, we don't know where the top is right now. And then we don't know, that'll tell us where the bottom is, right? Well, if we look at historically where we should be, if we're looking at this 546 days, 523 days, if we just look at that, then we are looking around November of this year to be the top. We are looking around November. And then for the bottom, if it's going to be about a year, then we're looking at October, November of 2026, which would be the best time to sell, or I'm sorry, to buy on the next cycle for the 28 halving. So now I wanted to show you the graph that I put together, which has the key dates that are on that sheet. A very simple graph. It just shows those dates that I think are key. And as you can see, I mean, early in Bitcoin, right, there wasn't much going on. I mean, we all wish we could have bought $167, right? But I want you to key in on a few things, right? The election day prices, right, which is here. Okay, I want you to key in on those, and then the next low, right? I'd like for you to key in on those. Because when we look at that, if we have the election day price of $664 during this 2016, right? And then the next election day, you know, the next low, right? The next low was 3,323. Election day price of 13.9. The next low, 15. Even here, the election was about $10, and the next low was $167, right? So what I'm trying to say is that historically, Bitcoin has never dropped below the price of that previous halvings election year cycle, the election year, U.S. presidential, each next bear market. Now I know that's like a word salad, but what you really need to know about this is that we're never going to see less than $60,000 Bitcoin again, like ever. If this holds true, and how it has these last three cycles, you're never going to see it less than $60,000 again. Now, when are you going to get it for $60,000 or 65 or 70 potentially? Probably, like I said, around October or November of next year. So if you're looking for the best time to buy Bitcoin, well, that's today, and then you just hold it. But if you're looking for the best time to maximize your money, it could potentially be late of 2026. And then where we are today, right, 122,000. You know, we had reached 125 just a day or two ago, which was a new all-time high. And you know, we still have a lot of leg to go. There's a lot of room to go in here, right? And the reason why we know this is because of charts like this. Historically, September has always been a pretty bad month for Bitcoin. Now we actually ended in a slight positive, which was fantastic, right? And then historically, October has always been a great month, and November is normally a great month, right? So these are really important to know because, you know, if you're looking at for an average return of 21% in October and just going by the average, and we're already at 122, then another 20%, you're into the 140s, right? Maybe touching 150. If we also add onto a November on top of that, then we could be going much higher. But it just depends on where the cycle ends at. So either we're going to end around 140, 150, or if we stretch it into November, we could be going much higher. But I don't know. Well, that historically is not very. It normally is right at the beginning of November, and most of these November gains are made in years that were not the bull run ending years. Like it's more in between the cycles. And then December, has been traditionally a bad month. So I would be very surprised if we end on a good month in December. I would see that would be the downward trend for Bitcoin going into crypto winter. I like the Pi top indicator. And from previous videos that I've shown that when the long-term and the short-term indicators cross, that indicates the end of the Bitcoin bull run for that cycle. That's the end, and then it goes down. Where are we? Well, we're not even close to touching. Not even close. So we're doing really well. We still got a lot of ways to go, and looking forward to seeing how this plays out. In previous cycles too, I mean, it collapses really fast. Like here, you can see a nice gap there, and then it closed pretty fast. This one was more of a longer curve. This one's a little shorter. This one's been quite long. This cycle's been quite long. It feels like it. But when I showed you the numbers, you could see that we're pretty much right in line with previous cycles on the length. And then when we look at our rainbow chart, which we've seen before based on my previous videos, then you can see if we're thinking that we're going to get into October, November, then where do we want to be? Well, if we're looking at, let's say the top is the 10th of November, and we traditionally get into the orange, then we're over a $200,000 Bitcoin. I just don't think that we're going to get there this time because of a lot of different factors. But I'm pretty sure we're going to get into the yellow, which is over 158K. Now, we may die a little sooner than that, as in crypto, Bitcoin may collapse a little sooner than that. I still think the 150K is a really good target, but I am not going to sell until I get the indicator that we're at the top. And you shouldn't too if that's your plan, unless you really need it. And as you can see, every top, it just went into the orange at a minimum. If it does go into the orange, as we saw, then we are looking at 200K, but we got a long ways to go to get there. And that would mean that we would need that November to be a really big green month along with October in order to get that gain. So, I mean, let's see how this plays out. I'm pretty excited about it. We see that we're nowhere near the end. We see where we can get to as it gets to the end. So I think it's really important that we pay attention to that. And you don't want to, if your plan is to sell, don't sell too soon, but also don't hold too long to where you're catching this falling now. Or you're catching this falling. Because this time period here, from this top, right, and it starts dropping that month. So we're at 60K here, the price, 66K, let's say. And then by the time you hit January, it's at 47. So you've lost a huge amount. So don't even wait, a month. If you see this indicator, right, and it's right there and it's touching. If it's touching, then you should sell if your plan is to sell. But that's all I want to talk about today. Kind of where we are in the cycle. What's our plan? I think that you guys are doing great. If you're holding, if you're buying, if you need to sell, you're making smart choices. I want everybody, all of my friends, anybody watching this, my family, all of them, I want them to make as much money as possible off of this. If you found this video insightful, make sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of crypto. Thanks for watching, and now you know thanks to Jaxx Crypto.